What are you chasing? There's a certain kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work. It comes from chasing. Chasing love that never stays. Chasing success that always seems just out of reach. Chasing approval from people who barely know you. Picture this. A man runs down an endless road. He's reaching for something. Fame, love, money, recognition. And just when he thinks he's close, it vanishes. Not because it's too fast, but because he's chasing the wrong way. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like the harder you try, the further everything slips away? Like life keeps dangling the things you want, but only when you stop reaching does anything real begin to appear. That's not your imagination. It's a pattern, and it's one most people never escape because they believe they just need to try harder. But what if that's the trap? What if trying harder isn't the answer? What if the real shift happens when you stop chasing and start attracting? There's a silent truth most of us don't want to face. The things you run after with desperation tend to run from you. Why? Because neediness repels. Because frantic energy leaks your power. Because chasing is rooted in fear, not clarity. You see, chasing often begins from a belief that you're not enough as you are, not successful enough, not lovable enough, not worthy enough. So we compensate. We hustle to impress. We overgive in relationships. We micromanage every outcome, hoping to finally feel in control. But deep down, we're terrified of being unseen, unloved, unimportant. And that fear, it makes noise. It makes us move too fast. It makes us abandon ourselves in the pursuit of what we think will fix us. But here's what the Stoics understood, and what modern life tries to make us forget. What is truly valuable doesn't need to be chased. It's drawn to virtue, to inner clarity, to grounded strength. That's why the Stoics didn't obsess over status or wealth. They focused on who they were becoming internally. Because when you live by virtue, when you act with integrity, patience, discipline, wisdom, you don't chase the world. The world begins to notice you. It's a reversal of everything we've been told. In a culture of hustle, silence becomes powerful. In a culture of showing off, humility becomes magnetic. In a culture of noise, inner stillness becomes unforgettable. Maybe, just maybe, it's not about doing more. It's about becoming still enough for the right things to find you. And if that idea speaks to you, if you felt burned out, unseen, or constantly in pursuit, stay with me, because what comes next might just reshape the way you move through the world and who you become in it. Chasing is rooted in internal lack. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. Why do we chase? Why do we run after people who don't see us? After jobs that don't fulfill us? After attention that fades as quickly as it comes? We chase because something inside us feels missing. At the root of chasing is not desire, but fear. The fear of not being enough. The fear of being left behind. The fear of missing out while the world keeps moving forward without us. And when we feel that fear, we try to compensate. We overdo. We overthink. We overextend. We think if we just do more, give more, try harder, then maybe we'll finally feel secure. But chasing doesn't create security. It reveals insecurity. Think about it. Have you ever texted someone multiple times, waiting, hoping, rereading what you said, wondering if you did something wrong? That wasn't about love. It was about fear, the fear of being forgotten. Have you ever jumped from one job to another, always looking for the title, the spotlight, the thing that finally makes you feel successful? That's not ambition. That's restlessness. Or maybe you've bent yourself backwards trying to please everyone, only to wake up one day and realize You've lost yourself in the process. That's what chasing does. It pulls you away from your center. It makes you think you need to earn your worth, when in truth, you've just forgotten it. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Let that sink in. In a world obsessed with having more, Stoicism reminds us, true power comes from needing less approval, less validation, less constant achievement. Because when you need less from the outside, you return to the power that's been inside all along. Chasing is noisy, it's frantic, it's exhausting. Attracting, however, is quiet, it's calm, it's grounded. When you're grounded in your own values, when you validate yourself from the inside, something changes. You don't chase people, you connect with them. You don't seek approval, you radiate presence. You don't beg to be chosen, you choose yourself over and over again. But here's the hard truth. As long as you believe you're not enough, you'll always feel the need to run. Run after love, run after success, run after peace. The problem is, everything you're chasing is already running too, and the faster you chase, the further it goes. So maybe the real solution isn't to run faster, maybe it's to stop, to stand still, and to rebuild from the inside out. To ask yourself, what if I didn't need to prove anything today? What if I stopped measuring my worth by how much I achieve, how much I'm liked, how many responses I get? What would happen if I simply showed up, calm, clear, centered? You see, chasing is a symptom. The root cause? Disconnection from yourself. Reconnect, and the chase becomes unnecessary. That's your challenge today, not to chase better outcomes, but to become the version of you who no longer chases. The version who no longer fears missing out because they found peace within. Over time, you don't just stop running, you start attracting, not because you're louder or more impressive, but because you're whole. And that quiet wholeness, that's the most magnetic force in the world. Attraction comes from inner wholeness. Let's draw a simple, powerful contrast. Chasing feels frantic, reactive, insecure. It comes from a place of lack, like you're running after something because you believe you're not enough without it. You chase success, hoping it will validate you. You chase people, hoping they'll fill the emptiness. You chase attention, hoping it will silence your inner doubt. But here's the thing. The more you chase, the more life seems to pull away. Attracting, on the other hand, feels different. It's not desperate. It's not loud. It's quiet, steady, grounded. It doesn't come from need. It comes from wholeness. You stop trying to prove something. You stop outsourcing your value to others. And in that moment, something changes. You become the kind of person others are naturally drawn to. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you were truly drawn to someone? Not because of what they said or posted or performed, but because of how they carried themselves, their calm, their honesty, the way they made you feel safe just by being in the room. That's what inner wholeness looks like. It doesn't shout. It doesn't sell itself. It simply is. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Don't talk about it. Don't tweet about it. Don't beg for anyone to notice. Be the thing. Because in the end, it's not words or charm or effort that attracts real connection. It's virtue. And virtue isn't performance. It's practice. Integrity attracts trust. Consistency attracts respect. Calmness attracts connection. These things don't require applause. They don't need an audience. They speak for themselves. And when you build them quietly, daily, inwardly, You stop chasing, and everything that's meant for you begins to move in your direction. So maybe the question isn't, how do I attract more? Maybe it's, what kind of person am I becoming? Because when you become whole, when your sense of worth is no longer tied to what comes or goes, you become magnetic without even trying. And over time, you don't just attract better, you become better. Act, don't perform. There's something strangely powerful about people who don't try to impress you. They don't raise their voices to be heard. They don't dress their words in performance. They don't explain who they are, because who they are simply speaks for itself. You've probably met someone like that. They walk into a room and don't demand attention, yet you notice them anyway. They're calm, rooted, real. And in a world full of noise, that kind of presence is magnetic. Now here's the truth. The most attractive people are rarely the ones trying to be, because when you're truly grounded, you don't need to be seen. You're too busy being. This is where modern life confuses us. We've been conditioned to perform constantly on social media, in meetings, even in relationships. We curate, we prove, we perform. But the problem is, the more you perform, the less real you become. And people can feel that. There's a kind of tension that creeps in when you're trying too hard to be liked, validated, or chosen. It's like emotional noise. And even if you're saying all the right things, others can feel something's off. Stoic wisdom invites us to a quieter path, a stronger path. It says, don't perform. Just live your values. You don't need to announce your virtues. Just practice them. Silently, daily, consistently. You don't need to post your every act of kindness, because real kindness doesn't need an audience. You don't need to explain why you're worthy. Just be someone whose character makes the explanation unnecessary. Think of that colleague who doesn't speak much, but always delivers. They don't boast. They don't chase credit. But when a project needs to be done right, everyone knows who to trust. Or think of the quiet friend who listens deeply, helps without fanfare, and expects nothing in return. No one claps for them. But strangely, they're the ones everyone remembers when things get hard. Why? Because we're drawn to what's real. And real is never loud. Let's be honest. Performing is exhausting. You're always calculating, adjusting, trying to match the expectations of others. But when you act instead of perform, you reclaim your energy. You stop leaking your worth into other people's opinions. You stop outsourcing your identity to applause. There's a line by Epictetus that echoes here, though he said it centuries ago. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. It's not about trying to look wise. It's about becoming wise, even if nobody notices at first. Because here's the paradox. You don't attract by doing more. You attract by becoming more. Not louder, not flashier, just deeper. The Stoics believe that virtue is enough, that if you live in alignment with truth, integrity, and courage, the right people, opportunities, and peace will follow. You don't need to chase admiration. You don't need to over-explain who you are. Instead, wake up and live your principles, not because someone's watching, but because you are. That's what makes a life strong, quiet, magnetic. So here's a question for you, and it's worth sitting with. Are you living or performing? Are your actions a reflection of your inner truth or a presentation for the outside world? This isn't about shame. It's about coming home to yourself, because the moment you stop performing, you become someone others trust, not just admire. You become the kind of person whose actions speak, even in silence. You become someone who attracts not attention, but respect. And that is far more powerful than being impressive. How to attract through virtue in daily life. Let's make this simple. You don't attract by trying harder. You attract by becoming a person of substance. And that substance, what truly draws people, opportunities, and peace towards you, is virtue, not performance, not perfection, but a quiet, consistent alignment with your values, lived in real life, not talked about online. So the question is, how do you practice this in the chaos of everyday life? Let's start where every powerful shift begins, the morning. Before you reach for your phone, before you scroll through what the world expects of you, pause and ask yourself one clear, grounding question. What virtue will I live by today? It sounds simple, but don't underestimate this habit. That one question, asked every day, will shape the kind of person you become. Maybe today it's patience. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. This is how you start to lead yourself from within, quietly, firmly, and without the need for outside validation. Now let's talk about relationships, one of the most common places we unconsciously chase. We text first, we overthink, we walk on eggshells to keep the peace. But here's the truth. The more we cling, the more we repel. So instead of trying to control someone's attention or affection, try this. Show up fully, with presence, with integrity, without needing anything in return. Because emotional security is magnetic. It says, I'm here, I care, but I won't lose myself trying to keep you. And that kind of energy, it attracts respect, not just romance. It creates space for real connection, one not built on fear, but on wholeness. Let's move to career, another arena where chasing often disguises itself as ambition. We chase promotions, praise, titles, status, but most people are so busy trying to be impressive, they forget to be indispensable. So ask yourself this, are you doing the work or just trying to be noticed? There's a difference. You want to attract opportunities? Don't chase them. Become the person who's so grounded, so consistent, so excellent at their craft that you simply can't be ignored. When you operate from virtue, not ego, you won't need to beg for recognition. Your work will speak. Your presence will speak. Your character will enter the room long before you do. But here's the real test of inner strength. What will you do when no one claps? When no one says thank you? When your kindness goes unnoticed? When your effort doesn't get acknowledged? This is where most people give up. They think, why bother being good if no one sees it? But Seneca gave us a reminder for those exact moments. The reward of a good action is having done it, not the applause, not the recognition, but the quiet inner knowledge that you're living in alignment with what's right, even when no one's watching. Because virtue isn't a show, it's a compass. And when you stay true to it, you stop being tossed around by life's highs and lows. You become steady, unshakable, and over time, people will notice. They'll feel it in how you speak. They'll sense it in how you handle pressure. They'll be drawn to the clarity, the calm, the dignity you carry. Not because you ask for it, but because you embody it. So if you've been wondering how to attract without chasing, here's the answer. Live in a way that you admire yourself, even if no one else is watching. Over time, the right people, the right paths, the right outcomes, they don't need to be chased. They're pulled toward your gravity. Let others chase the spotlight. You just keep becoming the kind of person that light naturally follows. Final message, so here we are at the end of this journey. But before you click away, let me leave you with something simple. and quietly life-changing. Stop chasing. Start becoming. That's not just a catchy phrase, it's a compass. Because the more you chase what's outside, the further away you drift from what matters most, your own becoming. Let's be honest. We live in a world that constantly tells us we're not enough, not successful enough, not loved enough, not seen enough. So we chase success, thinking it will finally silence our self-doubt. We chase relationships, hoping someone else will validate our worth. We chase recognition because being invisible feels unbearable. But chasing always begins with a subtle, silent message. I'm not enough yet, so I have to run after what is. And in that endless running, we lose breath. We lose clarity. We lose ourselves. But here's the shift. What if you stop running? What if instead of chasing success, you became someone success is drawn to? Someone who shows up every day with quiet discipline. Someone who keeps promises to themselves. Someone whose work speaks louder than their words. That kind of person doesn't beg to be seen. They're seen because they're grounded. What if instead of chasing love, you became someone worthy of deep love? Someone who listens with presence, who holds boundaries with grace, who's whole, not desperate to be completed, because real love doesn't come when you're proving yourself. It comes when you're being yourself, fully, truthfully, vulnerably. And what if, instead of chasing validation, you started validating your own character? You looked in the mirror and asked, am I becoming someone I admire, even if no one applauds? Seneca once said, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Apply that not just to wealth, but to attention, to approval, to external noise. The man who no longer craves praise is finally free to live with quiet power. You see, a virtuous life doesn't need to advertise itself. It speaks in silence, in how you treat people when no one's watching, in what you choose when it's inconvenient, in what you walk away from, because it compromises your soul. You don't have to be loud to be respected. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to chase to be worthy. You only have to live in alignment with values that hold weight, with presence that doesn't beg, with virtue that doesn't need a spotlight. Let me leave you with this image. A person running, breathless, desperate, always reaching for what keeps slipping away. And then they stop. They stand still. They breathe. And slowly, life begins to walk toward them. Because here's the paradox. When you finally stop running after what you think you need, you begin to attract what you're truly ready for. Over time, when you stop chasing and start becoming, you don't just gain results. You gain peace. You gain power. You gain presence. So let me ask you this. What would change if you started living like the person you want to attract? What would shift if you started building the life you thought you had to chase? You don't have to run anymore. You are already becoming, and that is more than enough. If this message resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And most of all, walk forward quietly, virtuously, powerfully. Life will meet you there.